thank you very much for attending our session today. Really good to have you on board. We're going to be running through basically reasonable adjustments, so a short presentation from myself. I'll keep it short and sweet, but these information, so the presentation and further documents are available to download at any point during the session. You'll be able to see that in the download section in your little menu. And anybody who can't get that, just let us know after the session and we'll forward them on to you. So you don't need to jot down notes or anything like that, but do feel free to get in touch with us after the session. Just to explain a little bit of an introduction, I'm David Mitchell from 2 Health Limited, basically the Business Development Manager for Neurodiversity, supplying different solutions into the workplace for neurodiversity adjustments. We've also got Liam along with us. Liam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, morning everyone. My name's Liam and I work for a company called Matchware. We produce the assistive mind mapping software called MindView, which we'll be looking at in just a bit. I see lots of familiar names on the line. Great to see you all, and yeah, look forward to this. Thanks for the invite, David.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Business Development Manager for Concept Northern, which is part of 2 Health, so we can look after the Scottish region. And I'll be talking about my experience. I am neurodiverse, and I'll be talking about my experience in using MindView later on.
Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping, guys. Do feel free to ask questions throughout. We're happy to jump in and answer questions either in the Q&A section in the menu, or you can interrupt us at any point. We'll have to answer as we go through. But do be aware that we've got quite a lot to go through as well. So if you want to save it for the Q&A, that would be useful. But in addition, you can always get in touch with us after the session and, you know, approach us with any further questions. We're going to be covering a little bit on neurodiverse conditions. I won't go too in depth, hence the time. Reasonable adjustment solutions, funding that is available. Then we'll go through to the MindView demonstration and then follow on with James' experience, and then we'll follow on with a final Q&A. So hopefully you can all stick with us and bear with us throughout this today. So just a quick brief overview on neurodiversity. So it's an umbrella term which basically captures a number of specific learning difficulties. Common technology you'll hear is neurodiverse, neurodivergent, neurominorities, which is one I don't like, and then SPLD, which generally is used in the education kind of sector, but you will come across these quite often. Just to give you an idea on the conditions that we're going to be kind of covering today, and the reason I wanted to show this as well, and you'll probably see this slide later on, it's quite important to realise that people with a neurodiverse condition may also have a co-occurring condition. I'm dyslexic myself and slightly ADHD, slightly dyspraxic, so those traits do come in. So the reason for explaining this is that you can't actually keyhole a person with a neurodiversity into this will be the solution for them because they've got dyslexia, because they may have traits of other disabilities. Plus, you've got to consider personalities, the strengths and weaknesses within that disability, and in addition, their working role, really. So we're going to be covering a little bit on dyslexia throughout, which is basically a learning difference where people struggle with reading, writing. It may be short-term memory issues. Then we'll cover a little bit on ADHD, where people have basically attention disorders where they might be distracted quite easily. My ADHD means I've got to turn everything off while I'm doing presentations, things like close the blinds so nothing distracts me. So you can see where people in workplace might need to remove distractions just within their environment. Dyscalculia, which is a kind of not as common disability, which falls under the neurodiversity banner, which is more to do with numbers and figures and things like that, even struggling with things like money, measurements, but also has traits of issues similar to dyslexia, as in short-term memory issues, reading and writing issues as well. Dyspraxia is motor coordination, additional planning and organising. So dyspraxia often kind of referred to as the clumsy gene because people tend to not perceive distances quite so well, so they bang into corners of tables, may knock over things like drinks and things like that because their perception doesn't show the brain where they are quite easily, like other people, so often known as a clumsy gene. And then we've got the autistic spectrum conditions, which we've all heard quite a lot about. These seem to be a lot in the media and everything. But basically, we'll cover a little bit more of that in Jamie's session because he's got that condition as well. So just moving on, one of the things I wanted to point out, guys, is that even though when we're talking about putting in reasonable adjustments and support for people with neurodiverse conditions, is we need to not ignore the strengths of these people. I've done a generalised image here of the strengths, and the idea behind showing you this is that it's quite important that these people, even though they may be able to get support for any weaknesses they have, their strengths are actually much higher and more valuable to employers than you think, and that they should be actually sought out. And putting the person in a working role with these kind of strengths really can help them outshine, help them progress, help them be promoted, help them do well in work. And you'll find that they love using these strengths. I myself, I've got a great long-term memory when it comes to assistive technology or IT in general. And I love showing off that I can do and remember these things with the long term. So things that are quite useful. Often think outside the box as well. So they'll think and bring things to the table that other people don't often think about. Can problem solve and see the final journey of a project before anyone else. So often can come across with, there might be issues along the line of this, that, the other. So you'll find that the strengths are really positive features that we can kind of plumb into. So what are readjustments and who are they for? So basically, anybody who's determined as disabled under the Equality Act basically can ask for reasonable adjustments in work. Okay. An employer must make reasonable adjustments, but they obviously need to be within reason. So that's where kind of a lot of companies aren't sure, hence that companies like To Health can assist with those things. But many of the time, it's just putting in simple things like a working environment change. As I mentioned about the ADHD, it could be just a change of working position, to position somebody away from a window or away from a walking galley where somebody's going to a canteen often, which can distract people. So slight adjustments could be put in place. Or it may be that you need to make building adjustments or adjustments in assisting the people to get into work and those kind of things. We're going to cover a lot of that today through the session. And then basically how you put workplace adjustments in. So reasonable adjustments would be, tends to be, if you don't generally put the basic ones in place straight away, you would need to refer to a workplace needs assessment. So within these, you've got workplace strategies I've just mentioned, assistive technology solutions. We're going to cover some of that later on with one of the products, MindView. Training and use of the assistive technology. Quite important that training, I know we've got a few trainers on board today, but it's very important that training is actually put in place for the assistive technology. These trainers often have intense knowledge of the product, but also of the disabilities, so they can assist the person with best use of those products for the working role. Coaching and co-coaching, quite a key solution, often recommended to assist the person with their disability in their day-to-day role, often touching on the assistive technology, but also things like planning the day, how to prioritise work, how to prep for meetings, how to prep for maybe writing a report, lots and lots of other tips and information they can assist them with, but also how to cope with the anxiety and knowledge of having a disability. And one of the kind of large ones now that is getting more and more common is the awareness training option. It's often recommended for maybe a team that work with a person with a disability. So if they're going through an access to work application, they may get recommendation for awareness for their team. That's quite important, really, because people need to know what the disability traits are, how best to work with them, how to kind of cope with the way they work. Because often you might find somebody with ADHD wearing a noise cancelling headset to cut out distractions around, and they appear to be quite rude and not joining in the group's conversations. It's just because they need to do that to get on with work, and that awareness is needed. So it's often quite important that they get that training. And then we'll cover a little bit on travel and non-medical help, which isn't our remit, but I just want to kind of let you know that that's there. Okay, so basically assistive technology, many different products out there. We're going to do a demo of MindView later on. Basically, mind mapping is in there to help people with organisation and stuff. Liam will go into that in quite in-depth detail. There are a lot of other products that might get recommended. When they're being recommended, it will be recommended with your systems in mind, so whether it will work on your internal systems, but also whether they'll work together with each other. So if several products are recommended, they need to be able to work with each other as well. Otherwise, it's pointless having all these tools and having to use them individually. So a lot of these software developers, such as MindView, have worked together with the other developers to ensure that they work very well together. So one of the things I do want to mention, which I've not touched on, is ergonomic assessments. Now, a DSE assessment is just a general desktop environment assessment, and it might be that anybody could need that. But when somebody's got a physical condition and they may need further support on being able to sit for longer to work, so a more comfortable seat, or as the lady picture there shows that she sits standing, so she's actually got an adjustable desk and able to stand throughout the day as well. That adjusts the comfort and then enables her to work longer. It could be that the person works in bed. So with our hybrid environment of working nowadays, a lot of us are working at home for more than we are in the office. So the option is to be able to lie down and continue working. If you've got an uncomfortable condition, you can do so with additional products. So often you can get assessments for a higher rated value than just a standard DSE assessment. So quite a lot of products involved in ergonomics. And like I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to mention other funding that is available. So through the Access to Work funding option, I've mentioned some products now, but one option could be a person needs to commute into work, so might need a taxi. The taxis can be paid for by the company and then claimed back on a regular basis from Access to Work, from DWP. That's for somebody who can't physically get into work and doesn't have anybody who is able to take them into work or back. Or it may be taking them around to different locations of the business for meetings, so they can get support with that as well. In addition, they may need non-medical help, which is assisting a person in work who isn't able to move around into meetings within the work or moving into different departments and around the business. Or even to the toilet, so they may need additional support. And then also things like BSL interpreters for people who are hearing impaired can all be funded and supported, so long as there's correct recommendation. So just a brief touch on the assistive technology training. As I mentioned earlier, it's quite key and important that it is supplied. It's usually a one-to-one, but you can, on occasion, involve the line managers so they know what the person's going to be using. The systems need to be able to take the software, so often IT needs to be involved to get it installed before the training goes ahead. So something to bear in mind. Just receiving the software and then booking it in for training isn't the best idea. Get it installed first. But basically, what the trainers will continue to do is make sure it's the same trainer every time. And that the training is adapted to the person's working environment and working needs, as well as disability requirements. So quite key, really, that the training's put in, because there's no point in receiving the software without knowing how to use it. Okay, so just a quick, brief kind of overview on the coaching and training services. Again, this is funded by Access to Work. The coaching tends to be one-to-one, or there can be co-coaching with the line manager. So the individual could get their line manager involved, and they can basically show them and assist them with any support that is being put in place. And then also I mentioned the awareness training earlier on. Two Health now do a new service for manager awareness training, which is away from the funding options, but we do that as a proactive solution to get managers more aware where support might need putting in place before it becomes a bit of an issue. Because neurodiverse conditions are all hidden conditions. So I've just got a bit of a slide here from the Access to Work website. You can get that from the government website. This slide will be shared, but basically I just wanted to cover that the funding is there. It's basically the size of the organisation that dictates the amount of funding that's available. If there's 49 or less employees, it is fully funded 100%. If your application for funding is within the first 6 weeks of your employ, then you get 100% as well. So it's quite key that companies kind of catch their people at point of recruitment and assist them at point of that, just to make sure that they can get that full funding. But if not, the funding is available, but you may need to contribute towards it. Coaching and awareness is 100% funded, but there's also support which is quite key, especially now with the new uptake in apprentices. But there is support for apprentices, and also the Kickstarter scheme, so the new government Kickstarter scheme, which I believe Access to Work will action that through quicker because they're on a short-term period with employees. So do let companies, if you're involving them, know that the application is part of the Kickstarter scheme, and they'll escalate it. Okay, so just to cover a few of our services of 2 Health. So we basically, the top line there, we do diagnostics of disabilities, not needed for any funding, because often you can just basically, declare that you've got the neurodiverse condition. But diagnostics often is suitable for somebody who wants to know themselves that they've got that kind of condition and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and it kind of helps them. I was diagnosed about 10 years ago for dyslexia, and it was quite an impact on my life, knowing the issues I had through school and education, the ways I was guided into different, more hands-on roles as a younger age. So yeah, diagnostics can be quite a key life-changing event. We also do screening, which is a basic overview to assist companies to see if anybody they're going to employ has a condition that can support them, or anybody in employment may have a condition and they can put in support. We also assist with workplace needs assessments, so we can perform workplace needs assessments if required to basically assist the employees. We do visual and hearing and impairment assessments as well. And as I mentioned briefly earlier on, the ergonomic assessments we can assist with. All of the services recommended we can supply: one-to-one training, coaching, awareness training, management coaching, and we also do a disability impact awareness training. So somebody who may have discovered at a later age, such as myself, that they have a disability and it's impacted them emotionally, and they need a little bit of support before moving on and actually getting the additional support put in place. And then when it comes down to all of the technology, we're a bit of a one-stop solution, a one-stop shop. We supply all of the ergonomic furniture, assistive technology. We offer full technical support on everything we supply, and also installation of the products. We do an end-to-end funding application where we will assist, after a workplace needs assessment, somebody to apply for Access to Work. So we will try and assist them and guide them through that, because often it can be daunting, even though the system is actually quite easy. It is quite daunting for somebody who's never done it before, and it's the actual end user who applies for the employee, not the employer. And with our systems, we offer a case management where we would follow up any supply we've given a few months down the line to ensure the services are actually working for them. So that's pretty much my section, guys. Like I said, the slides will be shared, so you'll get my email and telephone number. Do get in touch if you wish to discuss further anything we're going through today. Open for any talks. Join us on LinkedIn. We've got lots going on with LinkedIn, lots of sessions like this that we're doing today, and in relevance to other workplace solutions as well.